Hello everyone, and welcome to my webinar. I'd like to thank you for taking some time out of your day to come and sit down and get what I hope will be some helpful tips on stressful parenting situations and hopefully some things that will help you through your parenting journey. So our agenda for today is going to be a brief introduction of myself. We're also going to talk about why this is important for parents to know. We're going to discuss your child's development, particularly between the ages of 0 through 5. And then we're going to talk about stressful parenting situations during this time of your child's development. We're also going to discuss some tips, 5 tips to diffuse these stressful situations before they escalate. And then at the end, I'm going to give you some takeaways, some resources for you to use later on. So that's me. My name is Christina Cardet. Currently, I'm a public relations master's student with Full Sail University. But before that, I was a child protective investigator for the state of Florida. I worked for the Department of Children and Families for 4 years. And I am also a mother of 4 boys whose ages range from 5 to 21 years old. So between those 2 experiences, I've seen the best of parenting and I've seen the worst of parenting. And the worst is definitely not pretty. So I thought it was very important to take some time to do this webinar and talk to parents about some very crucial stages in their child's development so they know how to get control over situations that can get out of control pretty quickly. So the title of the webinar is You're the Parent, Take Control, 5 Steps to Diffuse the Most Stressful Parenting Situations. And I came up with this title because there's a common misconception that because you're a parent, you automatically have complete control over all situations when it comes to your child. And as parents, we just know that that's not the case. Whether we're talking about a colicky baby or a toddler who just loves to throw tantrums, there are always going to be certain points in our children's lives that we feel anything but in control. And that feeling is very frustrating, especially when you don't know what's going on with your child or how to fix the problem. So I believe it's very important for all parents to educate themselves on this topic. I can't remember how many times as an investigator I said, if this parent just knew what to do or if they just had the education to apply to the situation, this could have ended up totally different. So we're going to discuss some of those situations that we face as parents that statistically are considered to be the most stressful for parents. And for the purpose of this webinar, I want to focus on ages 0 to 5 because these are very crucial years in our children's development and statistically where a child is most vulnerable and at risk for maltreatment due to their age and due to their limited ability to communicate. So the first scenario is the screaming baby, and whether you are a brand new parent or someone who has multiple children, you know that for the first 1 month to year of a child's life, this is a very challenging time. Your baby needs you for everything, for feeding, for changing, to hold them, to pretty much do everything. So you're not getting a lot of sleep that first year. You're up every 3 hours around the clock, doing everything that the baby needs, and usually this is at least for the first 3 to 6 months before a baby starts sleeping a little longer. So this schedule is normal. So being sleep deprived, you don't have a lot of time for yourself. After a while, that takes a toll on even the best and most patient parent. Now, when you add to the scenario a baby who is sick or just for whatever reason is going through a phase where they're constantly crying no matter what you do, you could get frustrated and you can get angry, and especially when you don't know what to do and when you're not thinking clearly. So what we need to know as parents is that frustration is completely normal. Even anger is common, but we need to be careful of the wrong response. I know a lot of abuse cases, both of mine and colleagues, that involve babies that dealt with shaken baby syndrome or something else. One of the most common excuses we would get from parents or caregivers is, I just wanted the baby to stop crying. I was so tired and so stressed and he just wouldn't stop crying. And studies and statistics have shown that the stress that comes with having a new baby and not knowing how to properly handle that responsibility automatically puts a baby at a higher risk for abuse, just because the parents don't know what to do and sometimes they just lose control. Oh, that's a phase for you. This is the toddler, and as parents, we're probably pretty familiar with this stage. This is the tantrum throwing toddler, and even if you have the best toddler in the world, there's going to come a time when you feel that your child has been replaced by someone or something else that you do not recognize, because it's just the age. We're talking about the ages between 1 and 2, where children are exploring their boundaries, they're pushing their boundaries, and they don't necessarily have the understanding to recognize when something they're doing is wrong or harmful. So when you feel like you've told your child 100 times to stop doing something or to stay away from something and they just are not doing it, It's not because they're being purposely defiant or that they're just trying to upset you. It's because they don't understand. They don't understand why you're restricting them from this thing they want to do or from this thing that they want so badly. And because they have such limited communication abilities, their way of communicating is by screaming, by throwing themselves on the floor, kicking, biting, all these other things that are sometimes very embarrassing, especially when they're in public places. But it's because they're not happy with the decision that you've made and they don't know how else to communicate it. So the problem comes when parents don't understand this about their child. Studies show that parents who lash out in anger, it's often due to just not understanding their child or what their child is going through during this stage. And they associate this behavior with basically just being spoiled or being defiant. And a lot of times that's just not the case. And once again, the wrong response is often implemented with dealing with toddlers, and it's often counterproductive. So stage 3, this is what I call the persistent preschooler. This is the stage that my youngest is in right now. And this is where children are coming into their own. This is between the ages of 3 and 5. They're starting to develop their own identity. And they can communicate a little better and let you know what they want a little better. But they're still very young. They're still emotional. And sometimes it could feel like having a big toddler. So what happens in this age is parents feel like their children should be out of the toddler stage, not doing certain things like throwing tantrums or having potty accidents. And the frustration comes when they just feel like their child isn't getting there quick enough and that they're the only kid that still has bedtime accidents or still very clingy. And what every parent needs to realize is every child develops differently. Some children don't develop fully when it comes to potty training until they're maybe 6 or 7 years old. And if you talk to pediatricians, they'll let you know a lot of times this is very common. So, and this is also the age where preschoolers are asking a lot of questions. They're very persistent about what they want. And all of these things put together can be very frustrating. So once again, frustration is normal, but we need to watch that response so we don't end up doing more harm than good when it comes to our preschoolers. So let's talk about those tips. Regardless of what stage of parenting you're in, baby, toddler, even older children, there are going to be times in each stage of your child's life that you're just at your wit's end and you don't know what to do. So before it gets out of control, let's look at 5 different things that you can do to get control of the situation and give yourself the time that you need to come up with a solution. Tip number 1 is to remove yourself from the situation. And when I say remove yourself, I mean physically. No good ever comes out of 2 people getting angry and going head to head, and the same rule applies for an angry parent and a very upset child. So when you feel like you're getting to the point of no return, walk away. Take a few minutes to breathe, calm down, and then return to the situation once you have more control. Tip number 2 is to remove the child from the situation. Just like you get frustrated with your child, I'm pretty sure your child gets pretty frustrated with you in a lot of these situations. And your presence often can just escalate things. In all my experience, I have never known a baby or a toddler or a child to die from crying. So it's perfectly okay to take the baby or the toddler, put them in a crib, put them in a playpen. For older children, you can isolate them to a room that's free of hazards. Teenagers, this works with teenagers as well. Tell them to go outside, blow it off, walk off some steam, go run around, hit a ball, hit a tree, whatever you need to do, go blow off some steam, and then come back when you're feeling more calm. So this gives your children their space to have what I call their diva moment, to get out whatever they need to get out. And then once they're calmed down, you can reintroduce yourself to the situation and maybe try and discuss things, particularly with the older children. Tip number 3 is have a support system. I have yet to meet someone that can parent alone, even if they have the patience of a saint. So no matter who you are, you're eventually going to need help from someone. This can be a grandparent, your spouse, an aunt, a close friend. For single parents, check into a local parenting support group where you could do play dates or just have someone to call to help take over when you're feeling overwhelmed. I know babycenter.com was a huge resource when my youngest was a baby, and it helped me through a lot of the rough nights and situations where I just needed a little extra support. So use the internet. We use it for everything else, right? So we may as well use it as a resource when it comes to parenting. Tip number 4, take some time out for you. I know that me time is a phrase that we use a lot as parents. Oh, I need some time. I just need some me time. But we need to let this not be just a saying. We really need to make a plan to make this happen because you really do need time for yourself. Use your family. Get a babysitter, even if it's just for a couple hours. Do the things that make you feel like yourself. If maybe getting a babysitter is not possible and you really feel like you need some time away, when you put the kids to bed, do a girls' night or guys' night in. Plan it. Watch a movie, maybe ask your spouse if he or she could take over in the morning so you could sleep in. Whatever it is you need to do and like to do, you need to find time to do it. And tip number 5, when all else fails, hit that panic button. Call someone immediately. When you've tried every last one of these steps and nothing is working, call a family member, a neighbor, a friend, even a clergyman. Have someone come over as soon as possible. And if worse comes to worse, call your local Department of Children and Families for your state. I know in the state of Florida, there's a report called Parent Needs Assistance, and that's where a DCF investigator will come to your home, a social worker will come to your home, they'll help you with resources, counseling. A lot of times this is free of charge, but you can't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes the first step to taking control of an out-of-control situation is admitting that you've lost control altogether. So we need to remember that just because we're parents, we don't have all the answers. We're just regular people with children trying to do the best that we can. So don't be afraid to ask for that help. It's better than the alternative, which is doing something in a fit of anger that can often have dire consequences, or at best, unfortunately, create a traumatic experience for your child that they will never be able to forget. So at the end of the day, you're the parent, and even if you lose control, you can try and gain it back by using these tips. So that's pretty much the end of the webinar. I just wanted to go over some quick resources for you to take with you. Of course, like I mentioned, babycenter.com is on there. There's also a couple articles from Yahoo and WRAL.com news that I use to corroborate some of the information in the webinar. And then the last link is to my YouTube channel. This is a public service announcement that kind of talks about child abuse. It is a little emotional, but it's a good video to watch if you want to see what can happen when things escalate out of control. So these are the resources for you to use and take with you. This video will also be broadcasted to YouTube after, so please visit my YouTube channel, look up the webinar. If you want to give it to someone else or you feel someone else could benefit from it, please use these resources. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I wish you the best of luck in your parenting journey.